Hey guys, it's Casey. Alright, so I'd like to go over some principles on psychedelics before I go into how these drugs can treat headaches and conditions that deal with headaches, such as cluster headaches. And one of those things I'd like to go over is that these drugs are actually non-addictive. They have no addictive properties, and the reason that is because they don't bind to the same receptors as other drugs, such as opioids, for example, which bind to the opioid receptors, and they trigger the brain's reward system, which causes them to be addictive. But because psychedelics do not trigger the brain's reward system, they are not addictive at all. At the same time, these drugs have very limited abuse potential because, first of all, they're not harmful to our bodies, and they can technically cause brain damage, neurotoxicity, but it's comparable to THC in the sense that it's technically possible, but basically impossible. There was this one study done on rats with Salvia divinorum, and they found that it required 6,200 times a normal dose for the rats in order to inflict neurotoxicity. So it took 6,200 times a normal dose just to cause any brain damage. And kind of like THC, nobody's going to be able to consume that much of the drug in order to actually harm themselves. So you can't make yourself uncomfortable by taking a large dosage, but you can't actually hurt yourself. Now, the only real way that you can abuse these drugs is by taking a high dose, an irresponsibly high dosage at one time. And once again, that's only going to make it uncomfortable. You're not going to have a good time, but you're not going to kill yourself or hurt yourself really in any way. Maybe psychologically, but that is a whole different discussion. You also have to mention the tolerance of these drugs. And the fact is, when you take, say, LSD on one night and you try to take it again the next night, you would require twice the dosage that you took the previous night in order to have the same effects that you did the previous night. So the reason that this occurs is because when you take LSD, your tolerance immediately increases substantially as soon as the drug enters your system. And it ends up taking a whole 2 weeks just for this drug's tolerance to reset completely. With that said, that makes it extremely difficult to abuse this drug. And so if you tried to take LSD, like a single dose, and then repeat those same effects every single day for like 30 days, and essentially taking one dose the first day, two doses the second, for the third, and so on, you would require a lot of LSD. That's another part. You can't really take these drugs consistently and not over a long period of time either. So that makes abuse, once again, very difficult. Now, besides the fact that these drugs are just simply difficult to abuse, they have a lot of healing properties, and they've found to be extremely beneficial to psychiatric conditions in particular, but they've also been found to be able to treat certain physical conditions. And while they haven't been used in this way as often because of the hallucinogenic effects that these psychedelics often have, it brings up an interesting topic of discussion because a lot of companies and scientists have been working on developing psychedelic drugs such as 2-bromo LSD, which does not have the psychoactive effects of LSD. However, it does have the healing properties, and that's not to say that this drug would work the same and be used in every single scenario that other psychedelics would be used, like LSD, because in terms of treating mental conditions, they do have some benefits from having those hallucinogenic effects depending on the situation. Because if, say, you're trying to deal with trauma or talk about it, if you constantly have those negative emotions associated with bringing up trauma, and if it's difficult for you, having that LSD, which dissolves your ego and makes things easier to talk about, that can be very beneficial. But if you say I have a physical condition, you're not going to want those hallucinogenic effects. They don't provide any value. It's not going to provide any benefits to your condition. So a lot of these people that have physical conditions, they most likely don't want those hallucinogenic effects, such as the case with cluster headaches. Now that I've gotten the first part over with, I'd like to go into what cluster headaches actually are. And this is an extremely rare neurological condition that only occurs in 1 in 100,000 people. And the reason that this condition is so significant when it comes to being treated by LSD and psychedelics is because it has no specific treatment. There is nothing that we currently know of in the world of pharmacology that can treat this condition, and nothing helps it even remotely. So the fact that psychedelics are able to put people into remission and reduce their symptoms dramatically is such a huge discovery that we've known since 1993. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence on this topic, but very little literature because there's not many people that actually have this condition. And so not many people have ran studies, but because it's so rare and there's no specific treatment, these people have congregated online and they've actually put out a lot of observations and reports based on what they've experienced. And so there's once again a significant amount of anecdotal evidence online as to how these people have treated themselves with psychedelics in treating their cluster headaches or migraines or any type of headache. So what does treating with psychedelics actually look like? Well, first of all, according to the anecdotal evidence, LSD seems to be the most effective, and psychedelics in general, they tend to be remarkably effective, surprisingly so, in terms of treating this condition or curing it entirely. Now, it seems that some people only need a microdose, but others need a hallucinogenic dose. And the frequency that they have to take those doses, it seems like most people only need to use a psychedelic once a month or once every few months in order to prevent any cluster headache attacks or migraines or anything headache related from occurring at all, which that is just so fascinating and so powerful that these psychedelics can do something like that. It doesn't make any sense. And we don't know why these psychedelics do this either, but we just know that they do. But really, when it comes to how this drug treats cluster headaches, there's not a lot to say besides what I've already mentioned. It's quite fascinating. We don't know a lot about why this occurs, and so scientifically, I can't really break it down much besides the fact that we have all of this anecdotal evidence that these people are having this condition completely cured just by taking these psychedelics as little as once every few months, which once again, that's crazy. It doesn't make any sense, but it's simply what's happening. So if this is something that you guys enjoyed, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, whatever, and have a great rest of your day.